decision support tools that we've been creating over the last couple of years. And the common thing among all of this is knowledge retention and transfer, as I'm sure many of you know. So what did we do? Some of the things we did was documenting our engineering standards, because we were doing some major projects. Project management guidelines as well. Technology tools, I mentioned that, decision support tools. And what I'm going to mostly talk about is the technical knowledge and experience, so procedures and training program. So I like this. Again, I took this, I think, from Sharon's presentation. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. We really needed to think about doing things differently. With such a tremendous change for us, we needed to look at something different, something that was going to be very efficient, something that was going to last us in the long term, especially because we're going to be expecting to see these changes as we move forward as well. It's not just stuff that we're dealing with in the here and now. So I'm going to talk very briefly about procedures. It was touched on earlier. Most of what I'd like to touch on is the training program, but I think it was Jim that mentioned it. Actually, there's two Jims before me, so I can just say I think Jim mentioned it. One of the Jims. And is that, procedures are just so completely interrelated with your training. I mean, you can't separate the two of them. So for us, procedures development was a big part of the work that we did with these new facilities. Obviously, work safety requires us to have written work procedures, of course. But really, they require written procedures really mostly for human health. We also do work procedures to make sure that we don't have process upsets, to make sure that, we don't impact the environment, to make sure that we don't break our equipment, all those kinds of reasons. And so in terms of developing our procedures, we took a very formal approach. One of the key things with our procedures was gathering the resource materials. So there was design reports, drawings, lots of information that you need to pull together your procedures. I can't say it enough. Identifying your assets. When you're referring to a procedure, everybody needs to call it the same thing. And I think I've given a presentation actually, or two, on the importance of that, because it can just mess up everything. We did task identification workshops with our staff. They identified what are the different things that we think we're going to need to do. And then we had to prioritize them. When then we did procedures development workshops. We don't just send one person off to go and develop procedures. We do these in a workshop environment, so that there's multiple ways of looking at it. And then desk and field verification, obviously. So I've got to go back to this. Oh, another thing I just wanted to mention about procedures is absolutely, for us, it was absolutely crucial to separate theory and procedure. When somebody's reading a procedure, they don't want to read all the theory. They want to just read what they've got to do right then and there. I absolutely believe that they need to understand the theory, but that happens in another venue. This is just a slide that shows you a bit of how we prioritize. We look at basically the potential for loss if you didn't have that procedure. There's going to be some materials provided after the workshop, and we can give you, I can answer questions about this after, but it primarily focused on three categories, which is severity, frequency, and probability of a loss occurring related to people, equipment, materials, or the environment, and then you add those up and you get kind of a criticality, you get a criticality ranking, and you can prioritize the development of your procedures using that. These are just some slides that show you our operations procedures. It was really, right at the beginning, we needed to develop a template. We didn't have a standardized template for our procedures. We wanted something that was easy to see, was consistent every single time, and provided a lot of value both to the people using it in terms of when they're using it, but also in how they find it, and so how it's going to interact with our document management system and all those sorts of things, and our work processes and how it gets reviewed and approved and all those things. So I just included all that. So now, in terms of our blended training program that Cheryl alluded to before, it's really kind of a pyramid style, and if you go from the bottom to the top, really the information at the bottom is your more static material. The information at the top is what's more dynamic. So if you look at the web-based training, this is the theory, the what and the why. The stuff that really doesn't change over time unless you maybe upgrade your facility or add a new unit process. So that kind of stuff, you really shouldn't be changing it that often. And then you get to the troubleshooting guides. Well, that's basically as your work goes on, things, you know, I've got this indicator that says this, what are some of the possible causes, what are the potential solutions, all that kind of stuff. That just builds over time as you continue to operate your facility. Very dynamic stuff. Where did this come from in terms of this pyramid for us? I guess I should mention, so field training is very focused on the procedures and scenarios of this classroom, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Where did this model come from? We've been working in partnership with a local consulting firm since 2000. They had a certain model that was based on their work in the oil and gas industry primarily. We have talked to a number of different other facilities and looked at their models and used our own experience, and this is how basically we came to this conclusion of this model for us. So this is just a screen capture of our web-based training, just kind of the front pages. It just kind of shows you, this is what a user would see when they first go in. They can pick which module they're going into. This is actually a screen capture of the content of one of these modules. The menu on the left-hand side is consistent for every single training module. It's based on adult learning so that consistency, they know that they can find the same type of information in the same place every single time. And it's really the what and the why. Obviously, this slide is all about UV treatment and basically UV light and what wavelength is most effective for disinfection. And again, this is the theory, this is the what and the why. Now, this is a fairly generic one. We did not replicate the training that they might be able to get somewhere else. There's obviously a little bit of overlap. Most of our training was on things that that were specific to our facility, so very much, you know, this is our clear well. At the outlet of the filtration plant, it shows all the different passes within the clear well. This is just an example of the different controls within that clear well. Okay. Behave. We don't have time for... Okay, so field training. We've got both walkthrough and skills demonstration guides. So basically they're a structured framework for staff. So the web-based training is, you know, each staff sitting in front of a computer. Field training is it's based on all of the procedures, and staff will walk through in the field those procedures, and they do it on their own. They don't really have permission to, you know, depending on their skill level and their experience, they don't really have permission to work on the equipment, but they have these guides so they can walk through and get a feel for what they're supposed to know. And then there's going to be skills demonstration guides that the trainers use, which is our senior operators or subject matter experts, and the trainers use with the operators, the trainees, to demonstrate their skills, and these are all documented. Obviously, it simulates the actual performance. And we've prioritized them similar to the procedures. We've got primary skills and we've got secondary skills. There's a lot of procedures that people don't do on a regular basis. Those are not the first things we're going to train them on. We're going to train them on the stuff that they're going to do all the time. This is just an example of a field training guide. It also includes stuff such as, you know, trace the lines in the facility, you know, explain the purpose of this process. So it pulls in some of the what and the why from the foundations material. Classroom training, we realized that with both the field training and the web-based training, that there's a lot of stuff that really crosses between, you know, with both the field and the web-based training, you have to compartmentalize, right? And there's a lot of crossover between those things, and there's a lot of dynamics that happen in the plant. I think someone mentioned it earlier. And classroom training was really based for us on scenarios. You give somebody a scenario and you let them work through it in a classroom environment. Now, classroom sounds like you've got a whole bunch of people. Our classrooms are anywhere from 3 people to as many groups of 3 people as you want to have. So really, it's just you put a scenario down on the table and you just work through it. It's about teamwork, it's about communication, it's about applying your theory, it's about understanding where to find the procedure, all that kind of stuff, led by trainers that are the senior operators who have had that train the trainer that actually others have mentioned today. And it's also done in a way so that, you know, we can develop new scenarios. You know, if there's an upset at the plant, write a new scenario. So again, we're talking about more dynamic type thing. This is a template for one of the scenarios. Actually, it is a scenario, and there's standard templates for them. And then the last, the top of that pyramid is the troubleshooting guide. As I mentioned before, you look at a problem. You've got these are some of the possible causes, and these are some of the possible solutions. Our senior staff have access to this, the back end of these troubleshooting guides, so that they can update it, add to it, make things different as the facility is live and goes through its life cycle. Assessment, absolutely critical. We have